Prince William has now become the owner of one of the most valuable private estates in Britain. This estate is something that Camilla had spent many years quietly turning into her own personal kingdom, filling it with her family and giving them jobs in every part of it. But the moment that property passed into William's control, he removed them all. Every single one of them. And what he is now getting ready to do next has made Camilla so afraid that sources say she is truly worried about where she will live. And what you are about to learn explains exactly why she never expected this to happen. It shows what the empire was that came into his hands and what it truly meant. On September 8, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II took her final breath at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. And in that single moment, before people around the world had even understood what had happened, a chain of events started across the British royal family that would change everything. Charles became king. That part was known by everyone. But something else also happened at that exact same time. Something that hardly appeared in the news back then, but had effects that are still causing problems in the royal family today. William, who was 40 years old at the time, became the Duke of Cornwall. This happened automatically by law. The very second his father became king, William became the only owner of one of the oldest and most powerful private estates in the world. What came into William's hands that day was almost impossible to fully understand. The Duchy of Cornwall is worth $1.2 billion. It covers 135,000 acres of land spread across 23 counties in England and Wales. It also includes almost all of the Isles of Scilly, a group of beautiful islands located off the coast of Cornwall. It also includes half of Dartmoor in Devon, old farms, historic castles, rented properties, holiday homes, and many years of financial investments. The estate was created in 1337 by King Edward III, especially for his son, Edward the Black Prince, who became the very first Duke of Cornwall. The rule was simple and has never changed. The estate belongs to the monarch's oldest son and the next person in line for the throne. Almost 700 years of history, and now it belonged to William. By the year 2025, William was earning $30 million every year from this estate. He chooses to pay tax on this money even though the law does not require him to do so. But this is where the story becomes more serious, and this is the part that many people completely missed. The Duchy of Cornwall was the same estate that had been supporting Charles's household for many years. While Charles was the Duke of Cornwall, this estate was the source of his income. It paid for his lifestyle, his homes, and his projects. And during those same years, Charles was continuing his relationship with Camilla, which completely broke his marriage with Diana. This was the relationship that Diana once described, in her own words, as making her feel like there were three people in her marriage. What most people never saw was how this affected her in private. Knowing that her husband was choosing another woman again and again slowly destroyed her confidence completely. According to people who were close to the situation, she would take staff members aside, with fear clearly showing in her eyes, and quietly ask them, "Am I beautiful enough?" When they answered yes, she would shake her head and softly say, "Do not lie to the princess." Like a young girl trying to hold back her tears. A woman that the entire world saw as beautiful could no longer see that beauty in herself, because the man she married had made her feel unseen. There were nights when palace workers heard quiet crying coming from her room at 3 o'clock in the morning. On many nights, she slept in a different room from Charles, alone inside one of the most grand buildings in the world, completely unseen by the public and completely empty inside. She became so unsure of herself, so deeply affected by the feeling that she was losing her husband to another woman, that people close to her described her as someone slowly fading away from within. The relationship that William and Harry saw as children slowly took over their mother's life from the time they were very young boys. The life that this very estate paid for now belonged to Diana's son. And there was one more important detail that almost no one talked about. The Duchy of Cornwall was created in a way by Edward III so that future heirs could never be financially controlled or pressured by the ruling monarch. William owning it meant that he was financially independent from his own father, and independent from everyone else. And this had very real modern effects that Camilla's family was about to experience. Because inside that estate, receiving a royal salary for almost 20 years, was a woman named Annabel Elliot, who is Queen Camilla's younger sister. She had been given the job in 2005 to design the inside spaces of duchy properties across Cornwall, Wales, and the Isles of Scilly. She was given this job without any open or fair competition. She received the contract because her sister married the man who owned the estate. That was the only reason for the arrangement, and for 20 years it worked smoothly, until the day William became her boss. What happened next sent a powerful message through Camilla's family that struck like a loud thunderclap. But before we reach that moment, You need to clearly understand who Camilla was and what she had been doing inside this family for the last 20 years. Because William's actions did not happen for no reason. They were a response to something. And that something is much darker than most people understand. What Camilla built and the way she built it tells the full story. Long before William had the power to act, he was watching everything. And what he saw would have broken a weaker man. It all began with a promise. Before Charles married Camilla in April 2005, William and Harry went to speak to their father in private. They made one quiet and very clear request. Harry later wrote about this moment in his book Spare. He explained that they told their father, "We support you. We accept Camilla. We will welcome her into the family. Just please do not marry her. Just stay together without marriage." Harry wrote that the two boys understood what a wedding would cause. It would bring their mother's name back into every newspaper in the world. It would force the entire country to compare Diana with the woman who had been involved with her husband during their marriage. Neither of them wanted that to happen. Charles listened to both of his sons, and then he chose to marry her anyway. To control how the public would react, Buckingham Palace made a clear public statement. They said that when Charles became king in the future, Camilla would be called Princess Consort. She would not be known as Queen. That was the agreement. William accepted this. He went to the wedding, shook hands, smiled for the cameras, and kept the heavy meaning of it all hidden deep inside himself where no one could see it. In February 2022, something happened that many people did not fully understand at that time. Queen Elizabeth II shared a message to mark her 70 years as monarch. It was meant to be a time to look back and think about her legacy. But inside that message was a decision that would change everything. She said it was her true wish that Camilla should be known as Queen Consort when King Charles III became king. At first, people thought this was a sign of acceptance, maybe even forgiveness. But people close to the Queen told a very different story. This was not about love or approval. It was about fear. By that time, the Queen was dying. Her health was getting worse very quickly, and she knew it. She understood what was coming next. The crown would soon pass to Charles, and with it would come a situation she would not be alive to control. One insider explained it very clearly. She was not giving Camilla her blessing. She was trying to control something. In private, the Queen had used words that the public never heard. She had called Camilla dangerous. She had been watching for many years. She had seen how far things could go. In those final years, she made a decision that felt less like support and more like giving up. She gave Camilla what she wanted. Not because she believed in her, but because she was afraid of what might happen if she refused. It was the act of a woman trying to stop a fire that she knew she would not live long enough to fight herself. Then came May 2023, the coronation, and something else quietly changed. The word consort slowly started to disappear, until one day it was completely gone. Camilla was no longer called Queen Consort. She was simply called Queen. This was the exact title she had always wanted. The same title that both princes had once made clear should never happen. And yet it became official and complete. One source later said what many people had already believed. She was never going to accept anything less. William had watched every version of the original promise slowly change, and he remained silent. But people close to him said his anger was deep and carefully hidden. One source explained it simply, William is more careful than Harry, so he has tried to hide his anger. What Camilla did to his mother has not been forgotten. And there was much more to feel upset about than just the title. Camilla did not simply wait for her position to improve over time. She actively worked to make it happen, and she had a very clear way of doing it. When she wanted Charles to see William or Harry in a bad way, she would go to him in private and quietly tell her own version of events. She slowly shaped how Charles saw his own sons from the inside, step by step, without drawing attention. Royal writer Christopher Anderson confirmed that Camilla was known for doing exactly this, giving Charles her opinions about William and Harry's weaknesses when no one else was there to hear. But that was only one part of what she was doing. The other part involved the press. Camilla had built strong connections with important British journalists, and her team used those connections like tools. When she needed to improve her image, stories would appear. When she wanted someone else to look bad, those stories would also appear. Her team spread the false story that Meghan had made Kate cry just before the 2018 royal wedding. That story quickly spread across the British media and caused real harm inside the family. Everyone inside the palace knew it was not true. Charles's team refused to correct it. William and Harry went straight to their father and told him what his media team was doing. Charles became angry and told William that he was being paranoid. Camilla had created a system where every path they tried to take led back to her. William was not imagining things. He was watching everything clearly. He was keeping every detail in his mind, and he was waiting for the day when he would have the power to respond. The arrangement with Annabel was built in the same way. Camilla's sister was given a valuable royal contract without any competition, and she kept that position for 20 years. But what made it even harder to accept was something deeper that most people did not see. Because long before the contract existed, there was something else, something hidden. When King Charles III was still married to Princess Diana, his relationship with Camilla had to stay secret. And there was one place where they met. It was a quiet country house in Dorset, owned by Annabel. The house was in the village of Storpain, far away from attention, private and hidden. That was where they met again and again. Weekend after weekend, Annabel gave them a place to meet, to stay safe, and to avoid being seen. And that is what makes what happened later so difficult to ignore. Years later, after everything had been revealed, after the damage was already done, and after Diana had passed away, Annabel was now being paid because Camilla had given her a job. She was being paid through the estate connected to Diana's past and through the estate now controlled by William. When William finally had the power to act, the question was never if he would take action. The only question was how he would do it. The silent conflict begins. The moment William became the Duke of Cornwall, he already knew what he would do about Annabel Elliot. He planned to remove her from her position. He did not arrange a meeting. He did not send a letter. He did not make any public announcement. Instead, he waited for the Duchy of Cornwall to release its normal yearly financial report. This is a document that almost no one outside of royal finance experts ever reads. It is a simple and technical record showing income, spending, and staff across the estate. But this time, something had changed. Annabel Elliot's name was no longer listed. After 20 years of working for the royal estate, her role ended without a single public statement. To truly understand how important this removal was, you need to understand how much Annabel had built over those 20 years. Only then can you see how much William had just taken away. Annabel was truly skilled and respected in her field. In 2014, she was ranked as the 5th most influential female interior designer in the United Kingdom. She designed the interiors of 12 holiday cottages on the Isles of Scilly. She worked on buildings at Restormel Castle. She improved properties at the Wyneywormed Estate in Wales. She also took an old and unused barn at Dumfries House in Scotland and turned it into a beautiful guest house used for weddings and private events. For almost 20 years, her work was part of some of the most beautiful properties owned by the royal family. None of this protected her position. Royal expert Emmy Griffiths explained the situation in careful words, the kind of words people use when they do not want to speak too directly. She said that after Prince William became the Duke of Cornwall, he removed Annabel from the payroll, and that this action caused some reaction and news attention. The official explanation from sources was also very careful. They said the decision was not about her work. It was not a reflection of her skills or performance. Everyone understood that this was not the real reason. Another royal source spoke more openly. This person said that William's decision was meant to send a clear message. He wanted to remove people who were holding on to royal benefits and reduce the high level of spending that his father had allowed during his time in control of the duchy. Cut away the royal hangers-on. That is the phrase that truly matters. That is how William saw the system his father had created for his wife's family. At the same time that Annabel's name disappeared from the payroll, William was filling the duchy with people he had personally chosen. He brought in Harry Aubrey-Fletcher and William Van Cutsum, both of whom were his close friends and also godparents to his children, Prince George and Prince Louis. The message was clear and needed no explanation. Out went Camilla's family. In came William's people. Every role that Charles had filled with someone from his own circle was now being checked again. Every setup that had been created for Camilla's comfort was now being closely reviewed. On the surface, the money involved was small. Annabel had been earning between $19,625 and $82,272 per year from an estate worth $1.2 billion. Those numbers were very small in comparison. But the meaning behind it was huge, and everyone inside the royal family felt it. It told Camilla that her family's connection to the crown was not guaranteed forever. It told the royal household that the shift from Charles's time to William's time had already quietly started. And this was not the only move William made. Every year at Christmas, the royal family comes together at Sandringham. It is one of the most important traditions in the monarchy. Sandringham is where many generations of royals have spent the holiday together. It is also a place that William will one day inherit. Camilla chose to invite her son, Tom Parker Bowles, from her first marriage, to the family Christmas gathering there. Reports later said that William was very angry and made his position clear. He said he would not attend the main Christmas lunch if Tom was there. Camilla invited Tom anyway. Tom later told the Telegraph that his mother had personally asked him to come, saying that she had not spent Christmas with him for a long time. Tom went to the gathering. William did not attend the main event at the large house. Instead, he stayed with Kate and their children at Anmer Hall, their home on the Sandringham estate, and celebrated Christmas there instead. Camilla had just pushed the future King of England away from the main family Christmas at an estate he will one day own, because she invited her son and chose not to step back. Then, in September 2025, something happened in public that made the tension impossible to ignore. During Donald Trump's state visit to Windsor Castle, Kate began talking easily and naturally with Melania Trump. The two women seemed to connect in a warm and friendly way. Then, from the side, Camilla stepped in. What happened next lasted only a moment, but it changed the feeling of the entire scene. Camilla raised her hand and made a short, firm gesture toward Kate. It was a signal, and it clearly meant, move. Step aside. Leave. She did not say any words, but the meaning was very clear. A body language expert, Judy James, later described it directly. She said it looked like Camilla was showing authority and almost pushing her away. The video spread quickly. Millions of people watched it, slowed it down, and replayed it, because what it showed made people uncomfortable. The Queen appeared to be dismissing the future Queen in public, right in front of world leaders. Behind the scenes, the reaction was immediate. Prince William had spent years trying to keep things calm and controlled. But this moment was different. One source said it affected him deeply. It was not just an awkward moment. It crossed a clear line. Because this was no longer a private issue. It had become a public message, and the whole world had just seen it. By that time, something even more serious was already happening in private. King Charles III, who was still fighting cancer, had started having quiet talks with his son about what would happen after he passed away. One insider described these talks as serious and emotional. Leave Camilla alone. That was the message Charles gave to his son. Protect her. Do not turn against her. Do not push her away. This was a king, possibly in the final years of his life, trying to secure his wife's future by speaking directly to the one person who would have the power to change it. That one detail explains more about where this situation is going than anything else. Because William did not answer with words. He answered through actions. He answered through a payroll report. He answered through a Christmas gathering he chose not to attend. He answered by bringing in his own trusted people to replace those connected to his father's wife. But removing Annabel Elliott and the Christmas situation were only the things people could clearly see. The move that Camilla felt most deeply, the one that would shape the rest of her life, was not about money at all. It was about something much more personal. It was about the homes she believed were hers. Because William had not only inherited an estate. He had inherited the very houses she had come to call her own. And the day was coming when she would have to ask him if she could stay. The homes she calls hers, and the man who truly owns them. Right now, Queen Camilla's life looks completely safe and secure. She moves between Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, Sandringham, and Balmoral. She carries out official royal duties. She has the full support and protection of her husband, the King. She holds the title Her Majesty, the Queen. She is a patron or president of more than 90 charities. From the outside, her position looks strong and permanent. But everything she has is connected to one man, and that man is seriously ill with cancer. Here is something most people do not fully understand, and it is the most important part of this entire story. Sandringham House in Norfolk and Balmoral Castle in Scotland are not owned by the British government. They are not crown estates managed by an institution. They are privately owned, just like a normal family home. Queen Elizabeth II inherited both properties from her father, King George VI. When Elizabeth died in September 2022, both homes passed directly to Charles. When Charles dies, they will pass directly to William. Balmoral is worth about $140 million. Sandringham is worth about $65 million. Together, that is more than $200 million in private property that Camilla currently walks through, sleeps in, and calls home. None of it belongs to her. Not legally. Not on any official document anywhere. One day, All of these homes will belong to William, the same man who removed her sister from his payroll without saying a single word in public. Balmoral, especially, carries a meaning that is much deeper than money. William was 15 years old and staying at Balmoral with his brother Harry in August 1997 when their father came to their rooms early in the morning to tell them their mother had died. Diana had been killed in a car crash in Paris. William and Harry walked those grounds that morning completely broken. Two young boys trying to face something no child should ever have to face. And there is a detail under all of this that feels heavy and hard to ignore. When Charles received the news from Paris that night, the first person he called was not the Queen, who was also at Balmoral. The first person he called was Camilla. She told him that Diana would be fine. Then he called again later with the news that she had died. Camilla was the first to know. She was there for Charles's grief before his own sons were even awake. Now Camilla walks those same grounds as Queen. One day, William will own them. When Charles dies, the legal transfer will happen instantly and automatically, just like it did in 2022 when William became Duke of Cornwall. William will become king the moment his father is gone. Kate will become Queen, and Camilla will lose the title of the Queen. That title will pass to Kate. Camilla will most likely become Queen Dowager, which means the widow of a king. It is not a negative title, but it is clearly a step down, and the whole world will notice it. Here is the part that makes the situation truly frightening for Camilla. Her title is not something she was born with. She is part of the royal family only through marriage. That means it will be completely up to William to decide what she is called after Charles is gone. Charles removed Diana's title Her Royal Highness after their divorce. William saw that happen. He watched it happen to his mother. He understands exactly how that system works. And now, he has the power to act. He could take back everything Camilla gained while his mother lost so much. Sandringham and Balmoral will belong to William. Whether Camilla is allowed to continue living in those homes will depend fully on what William decides. There is no legal rule that guarantees she can stay. She will only be there if he allows it. And there is one detail that makes her situation even harder to escape. Camilla once had a home that was completely her own. It was called Ray Mill House, a private house in Wiltshire that she owned before she married Charles. She used to speak about it with real affection. She described the garden there as the best kind of therapy. It was her private place, her safe space, the one place where she could close the door and simply be herself, away from the pressure of royal life. But she sold it. She sold the only home that truly belonged to her. The reason given was that she wanted to fully commit to her royal life and her role beside Charles. But the result of that choice is serious and cannot be changed. When Charles dies, Camilla will not have any private home of her own anywhere. She will live wherever William decides she can live. The woman who spent 20 years working her way to the top of the most powerful family in Britain, who managed the press and shaped public stories, will now depend completely on the goodwill of the man she once helped push out of his own family space. She created this situation herself. She walked into it knowing the risks. And now, the door has closed.